Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In this one I'm gonna take you through some of the features of the Glitz Reverb. Before we start exploring the features of the Glitz Reverb, I'm gonna quickly run you through the signal chain. The first thing in front of the amp is the Rochester comp, and you can see the settings right here. This Rochester comp is actually sounding great, and it's reminding me a bit of my outboard compressor, and the sound is great, and these are the settings that work for me. I'm gonna be playing probably on my neck pickup or the 4th position. I definitely do recommend that you try this compressor. I did a shootout video which you can watch if you click on the link that will pop up right now on the screen, and from that quick shootout I just realized that the Rochester comp sounds great. The amp block is the clean channel of the Soldano of the SLO 100 called Solo Lead Clean. It's dialed in fairly clean, but the compressor is doing some pushing, so it's ever so slightly broken up. The next thing here is the impulse response block, and I'm again using a York Audio impulse response. This one is a Friedman 4x12 mic with a 58. This is the transistor tape or the Echoplex EP3, surely one of the top 3 delays that we have in the Podgo when it comes to character and sound. Finally, we have the parametric EQ, which is doing the final shaping of the tone. And I never seem to talk about this block because this is a matter of taste, and I don't recommend that you do these EQ changes, and these are the ones that work for me. However, as you can see, those changes are very small. I have a very broad boost at 150 Hz. I have a fairly narrow dip around 500 Hz, and I have something that you might consider to be even crazy, because you see the high cut is here at 6.9K, and I'm doing the widest possible boost at 8K. But this bell boost, if you saw the EQ tutorial on my channel, will actually affect some of the higher frequencies, and I didn't want to lose all of the top end sparkle from this tone. And finally, there's a low cut at 100 Hz, and as I said, the high cut is set at 6.9. Okay, that's about all the info I got on the signal chain. Everything else on my pedal board is bypassed, so there's no external compression and there's no external reverbs here. So the way that I want to start this Glitz Reverb tutorial is by actually bringing all the controls down to their minimum values, except for the low and high cut controls, which, as you all know, affect the sound of the reverb the same way that they would affect a guitar cabinet or any other audio source. Low cut is eliminating the low end of your reverb, and high cut is of course eliminating the high end of your reverb. So the more you bring down this high cut value, the more high end you will lose. The mix knob is now at 0, the K is at 0.0, so we should technically hear no reverb at all, right? And this is absolutely correct, I'm hearing no reverb whatsoever. But instead of bringing up the decay, I'm gonna bring up the mix knob first. Let's start at 15%. With mix at 15%, I can start to hear the reverb tails. However, they are quite low and I can't hear the top end at all. Which brings us to probably the most important parameter inside this whole reverb, and that's the crossover. This X over means crossover, which means that this reverb is currently affecting only the frequencies that are below 100 Hz, I think. So I'm gonna play a G chord again and you listen to the tail of the reverb. I'm gonna bring the mix up to 30% so you can actually hear something. The reverb tail is very, very deep. It's almost sub-frequency here. So let's bring up this crossover point up to 1.2K. And suddenly, even with the decay set at 0.0, this reverb comes to life and definitely has more decay than we see is suggested here, which is 0. Now finally, let's bring up the value that's supposed to control the reverb time, which is the decay parameter. So from 0 up to 5, and here's the difference. Okay, that's already sounding pretty nice to me. The next thing that I want to show you is this modulation mix parameter. So again, here's a G chord with the modulation mix set at 0. Now moving the modulation mix up to 5. So the modulation mix is obviously doing a few things. It's obviously making this reverb a bit more exciting up in the top end, but it also seems to be doing some modulation that's reminiscent of a spring type of reverb, isn't it? I'm gonna bring down the decay. I'm gonna bring this back to 0 again so you can hear it without any modulation. And as we bring in the modulation, let's try to see what would happen if I would bring this crossover point down to our starting 100 Hz and leave the modulation mix at 4.0. When you dial in some bigger decay times and the mix is brought up to, let's say, 40%, you will actually start to hear that your guitar is now a bit further back and you're starting to lose some of the clarity. And one thing that can help you with that is this pre-delay parameter right here. Currently is set to 1 millisecond, so we'll hear no difference at all. So what's happening here? As soon as I pick the note, it's immediately followed by an enormous amount of reverb actually. And if you bring this pre-delay value just a little bit up between, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 milliseconds, you will keep the transient, you will keep the pick attack, and that initial transient that you will probably need when you're playing something like a clean lead with these amounts of reverb. So here's how it sounds with some pre-delay dialed in. And if we eliminate the pre-delay, back again with 40 milliseconds of pre-delay. I don't recommend that you push this pre-delay value up to the maximum, because that actually delays the Glitz Reverb completely by 200 milliseconds. With pre-delay this high, for me personally, it's really hard to play. It's weird to play because the reverb is delayed so much. So I suggest that you keep this. So keep it anywhere between 10 and 50 probably, that will work fine. But anyway, that's it. There's so much features and sounds you can get with Glitz Reverb. I was really finding it hard to cover it all now. I actually didn't cover the delay, the rate parameter and the depth parameter, which also affect the sound of this reverb. the depth parameter more so than the other two. If you like this short tutorial on the Glitz Reverb, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next video. And please tell me in the comments what's your favorite reverb and how do you find the Glitz Reverb. Adio!